because you asked me to. The point of it
Yeah.
was just to get rid of that photo.
Right.
Like the one that I gave away as a prize.
I actually, the other day, I found that one you sent me of you giving me the finger.
Yeah.
I was going to stick it up here while we were talking. I'll go get it right now.
Oh, it's much bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's pretty big. That's what she said on the.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see that?
No, it's all glary. Can't tell what it is.
Zoom in.
It's just the glare. It's all right. Not a big deal. It was just fun. It was a fun idea. Let's see, how do we start a conversation about mental health?
That's the ultimate question about mental health, isn't it?
Hey, let's talk about Silverchair.
Okay.
So Silverchair is a band,
Yeah.
right? And you posted a thing the other day where you were asking Jason Olson you gave him 6 Silverchair songs. You were like, listen to these and then give me 6 Nirvana songs and I'll listen to those and we'll discuss them. And I don't think Jason actually did that, but I did. Now, the way that was sort of proposed on Facebook was almost as if you thought Silverchair was a better band than Nirvana.
I do.
Oh, child.
Time out. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. I got a copy real quick.
You're batting zero in the music department. So you're a big fan of Marilyn Manson. You're a big fan of Nickelback. You're a big fan of Limp Bizkit. And you think Silverchair's better than Nirvana? Why do you think Silverchair's better than Nirvana?
A number of reasons. I think that musicianship wise, Daniel Johns was a better guitar player, guitar writer than Kurt Cobain. I think Silverchair, like their guitar work and their, like the singer, Daniel Johns' voice and the way that he uses it and stuff, like I just think that overall they're more, they're just bigger and I guess, yeah, better.
All right. So here's what I'll say to that. Silverchair is a good band. Don't get me wrong. They have a couple of really good songs. Like, was it Tomorrow? Tomorrow was a
really good songs.
Tomorrow was a very good song. Tomorrow was a very popular song. Tomorrow was a very influential song. But what Nirvana did in 3 years was create an entire genre of music. Like the grunge music existed before Nirvana. They were influenced by people like Mudhoney, and I don't know, the Meat Puppets, and even like Soundgarden. They're not Pearl Jam so much, but that like Mother Love Bone. They were influenced by these bands, but they took what these bands couldn't do, and they made a fucking genre. They made a way of playing music. They made a style that,
Well, they made it popular is what they did. They didn't like you said, they were influenced by these bands, but at that time, those bands weren't like massive worldwide bands. I guess that's sort of the big irony about Nirvana is that they took a genre that is based on simplicity and not getting popular and got really popular with it. You know what I mean?
Well, so I would disagree with that. Most of those bands that we're talking about wouldn't, back in the late 80s. So most people would think of Nirvana, would think of 90s, but they actually started in the late 80s. Most of these bands did. Them wouldn't have considered themselves like Seattle grunge. They would have considered themselves punk. Like Mudhoney was a punk band. The Melvins was a punk band. Nirvana started out punk band. But Nirvana took those elements and then combined them with like metal and melody and created grunge. My point was, you're comparing a band that started it all, that didn't really have a framework of what needed to be done in order to be a good band in this genre, and comparing them to a band that had a framework. Like they had a roadmap. They had not something they could copy, but something they could follow. Like they had an inspiration that was already doing this thing. And like that in and of itself makes it easy, right? Just because you have a roadmap to follow. You're like, okay, we can make this sound, or we can make music that has these melodies, or we can make music that does X, Y, and Z. as inspired by these bands that came before us to go on to do whatever. Yeah. Now, like, we can argue about who's the better band, but history, there's no argument when it comes to history. Like, history is going to remember Nirvana as like the god of grunge rock. Like, Nirvana changed. It was like in 5 years, Nirvana changed the world, dude. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there. But I mean, they are no different than Silverchair in that sense. Like, they too had their inspirations and their roadmaps. You know what I mean? Like, I just think
Yeah, but
they got
they had,
doing it.
yeah,
Like, I need to digress a moment too, because I don't think that a band's popularity necessarily determines how good they are on a whole, right? Like, I think we can agree that plenty of popular bands are shit, right?
yeah,
And lots and lots and lots of unpopular bands are super fucking good, right?
yeah.
You know, and so you can't really use that as a barometer necessarily.
I think a better way to say it is what's more influential, right? Rather than what's
Right.
good.
Sure. No,
Because
absolutely. And
and I think we argue about which band is better. I don't think we can argue that Nirvana is way more influential to music over the years.
no,
But
you're
Silverchair will ever.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
So I asked this question to prove a point. Music defines people mostly, right? Like if you're on a blind date with somebody, one of the first questions you ask is, "What do you listen to? What's your favorite music?" Because that tells you so much about the person.
Yep.
Like if people who if you're a chick who's really into rap and you're going on a date with a dude who's super into country, you know you're probably not compatible in a lot of different ways. You might be, but you're probably not, right?
Yep.
Just because music is so influential in our lives that it defines us. So you and I can have this conversation. It doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't, who cares?
Yeah.
Why can't we have a conversation about Montreal without getting pissed off? Right? Like why can people have this conversation about music and everything be fine, but they can't have a conversation about whether or not a silly little box is buried in Central Park without hating each other?
We know things about music. You know what I mean? Like, there are things that we can definitively say one way or the other. Like, we just established how, you know, Nirvana's influence can never really be denied, right? Even as somebody who's not particularly a huge fan of them, I'll never deny that their influence is huge, right? It's like what Corey Taylor said about Justin Bieber. Like, I fucking hate Justin Bieber's music, but you got to respect the guy, right? Like, you don't have to like him, but you got to respect him, kind of thing, right? And we know these things about music, and so we can discuss them on that level. But with The Secret, when there's so much speculation just living in the air, it everything you say adds to the speculation, right? Like, we know things about certain puzzles, like obviously the found one, stuff like that, and we can talk about those things on a definitive basis. But when it's just a room full of speculation, it almost inherently becomes a contest of whose speculation is more believable than the rest. You know what I mean?
Well, then take speculation out of it. Like the reason we know things about music is because people tell us, right?
Right.
At least facts about music. We know Kurt Cobain did X, Y, and Z because Kurt Cobain told us he did X, Y, and Z, or someone saw Kurt Cobain do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Secondhand information. Kurt Cobain did this. Yeah, this is how we know about music. So take speculation out of it. Look at the back of the book argument. Like everybody who's worked on this book has said they either had no input from Byron about the back of the, like on what to put in the back of the book, or they had no interest in adding anything to the back of the book. And yet there's like, so we know everybody that's been involved didn't really have any input as far as they're concerned or as far as they say, but there's still this like massive, massive divide. Like not even you, again, about the back of the book, you can't have a discussion like we just had about music. It like,
Right.
it's two warring factions, you know, anytime it's brought up. So I don't see why it has to be that way.
Well, I think too, like, in such a massive quantity, people have a tendency to like communication stops in the sense that it becomes, this is my opinion. And then the next thing, rather than talking about that, it's just the next person in line saying, this is my opinion, right? Like you see it all the time when people like they make a post and they say, what, this is my idea for whatever. And rather than somebody chiming in and saying, like, hey, that's actually not a bad idea. This is like, we can discuss or something like that. It always ends up being like one of the first comments always ends up being somebody else's theory. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
that's not discussion. That's layering of topics essentially, right? That's itinerary building, and it's just bullet point talking that doesn't really get anywhere. And you know, I wish we could figure out why that happens. Like, there's a certain self-importance that I think social media lends to us because of the importance it gives to everybody's voice, that nobody's there to really talk about each other's stuff. It's just, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, and so on. And, you know, like that's a detriment to communities like this, right? Like, um, if you compare the comment sections and stuff and the quote unquote discussions that we have in the secret with that of a heavy metal group where somebody says, Megadeth was better than Metallica, or they make some kind of an argument, or like I did, Silverchair is better than Nirvana, right? And you look at the discussions that actually take place there. There's actually discussion taking place there. It's not just, this is my opinion, then the next guy's opinion, and the next guy, and so on. It's an actual discussion, and it's so strange in a sense, but so predictable, I guess, that people in our community, you know, everybody has to be right. Like it's just such a fight to be right. And as a result, it becomes a fight to be heard more than anything, and so people they don't want to take into account anybody else's stuff because they have their own, and it has to be right.
Do you think so? Something that came to my mind when you were talking about like Megadeth versus Metallica, right? People are gonna when there's a conversation that's whether Megadeth is better than Metallica. There's going to be a conversation of bullet points. There's going to be X did Y and A did B or whatever. You're going to compare those two. But when it comes to things like the back of the book, the argument is always everybody said that everybody that worked on the back of the book has said there was nothing back there versus like the other side that says all of those people are just lying. Right.
Mm.
So it's like it's opinion versus fact, right? It's a fact that everybody has said that there was nothing in the back of the book. I mean,
Yeah.
like people throw up that and I know recently it was thrown up that Bradley wrote some notes after having dinner with John once that said there was definitely stuff in the back of the book, but that's misleading at best. Like what John said was he said there were definitely hints in the back of the book, but then we found out that John thought the back of the book, that the book was reversed, that the litany and everything was in the back of the book. He thought the Fair Folks Guide was in the front. So it's a misleading thing. Like he's like, I can't be the litany and shit's in the back.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about. So it's a fact that everybody has said there's nothing in the back of the book. It's undeniable that everyone has said that.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation should be about whether or not they're trying to mislead you, right? Like there should be a conversation. It's not just a given. You're not just like, oh, they're just lying to keep the puzzle up or whatever.
Right.
There should be that conversation. And I mean, I think that's the main difference. Like you have default arguments when it comes to The Secret. Somebody mentions something you don't agree with, you have a default argument, and it never goes past that default argument into discussion. It's just like somebody says something and you put up a brick wall and you're like, no, that's not true. You never talk about why it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of that for sure. Like every time somebody posts something about St. Louis, the first thing I always say is, "Where's your leg eater?" Right, and that's like that. I'm guilty of that. Like that's 100% what that is. Is it's a way to in a sense, assert dominance, right? Like that's a human thing we do as well, where being right means being dominant in a sense, right? Like people that are right about stuff hold a certain I'm going to very loosely use the word superiority. It seems within the community, like on a communal basis, sort of thing. And again, like it's opinion versus fact, and but it's not it's almost literally opinion versus facts, you know what I mean? As opposed to we're using one over the other, it becomes a contest between the two, right? Like it's like we used to say back in the day that if Byron Price was here today and said, gave up anything about the puzzle, there would still be a pretty good cross section of people that, accuse him of lying or misleading or, anything like that. And it's just that eternally speculative mentality it's tricky to work around.
I mean, I also think it's difficult because what we're talking about is static, right? It doesn't change. It hasn't changed
No.
in 40 years.
Yeah.
Music at least evolves. Like you can have those conversations and the conversation can move along. Every day new stuff comes out. Every year bands release new music, even if they're dead. Like
Mhm.
Nirvana still releases new music. Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain's dead. So
Yeah.
the conversation can evolve. It's possible, and I think likely too, that because this is so static and unchanging, that people have had those conversations so much that the same topics keep coming up and people just get bored of having the same conversation. So they're
Yeah.
just like, all right, whatever. Yeah, that you think that there's stuff in the back of the book, but everybody worked on it, said there's nothing back there, and then somebody's going to come along and be like, well, they're all lying, and there's going
Yeah.
to be no conversation because they've already had the conversation.
Yeah. Don't even waste the time.
It's annoying though. Like I
Yeah.
feel like it's easy to say but hard to do. But there are always new people that come along that haven't seen those conversations, and it's worth
Yeah.
having them again. Because the more you have those conversations, the more you lock in your ideas, the more convincing you can become, the more, you know,
Yeah, it's tricky. And like you talk about the effects it has on mental health, like the secret is there. The community that has been built around the secret is, first of all, like I said, sort of disadvantaged by the overall kind of anima of social media, in the sense that it's, like I said, social media tells everyone that their voice matters equally. And I'm not saying necessarily that it doesn't, but some opinions just aren't um, as advantageous to the overall as others, right?
yeah,
And so, you know, and I think like it again, it sort of it shows you in a lot of ways the kind of plasticity of people, in a sense. Like there's a lot of people that you think are really um I'm gonna use the word cool, I guess, but then after a while you kind of find out that that they're not. And so that can have a toll on you as well, right? Like when you finally meet somebody that is that's worth collaborating with, you know it's nice to know that you genuinely have respect from those people, right? And it sucks when you find out you don't, but it's um we make friends and stuff through these communities, and we make acquaintances that matter to us. And in a lot of ways, I think we discover those when we find out that it's no longer a competition, right? Like that it seems so competitive to find these boxes rather than being one giant team of 13,000 people, right? Um, but and it can the secret community can be both the cure for loneliness and the cause of it. You know what I mean? Because you do see a lot of ostracization of people. People come and go within a couple days, sort of thing, because their opinion was shit on, or just I've seen people join one day and then leave the next because nobody commented on a post of theirs. You know what I mean? They make that inevitable peace out post and then they leave, and it's like, when you really think about that on a really long timeline, what were the conversations that you just lost by not having that person in there? You know what I mean? Like the potential for value of people's opinions is always 100%. And it's when we one of two things happens, that you either lose or gain, in that you completely ignore it or it leaves on account of being kind of chastised or whatever, right? And that can have really, kind of devastating effects. Like people join the groups and they think, fuck, this is a really cool place and there's all these super cool people. And then after a few days, maybe they discover that the conversations they were looking for simply aren't going to be there. And, the ones that they do get into can get kind of ugly sometimes. And so now there's this disillusionment, right? Like what, and that they often, I personally know, you can carry that into other groups, right? And it can really affect your personal life, right? Things like that. And the mental effects of things like this is actually pretty astounding when you break it down because it's so consequential to both the positive and the negative. You know what I mean? Like each positive carries a just as valid negative with it, right? Like um, you know, you make a friend, for instance, and that's the positive. It's fucking rad making friends, right? I don't care who you are, you love making friends. Uh, and then but then sometimes you'll see that person in a completely different context. And it's like, that's not the friend that I made kind of thing, right? And, I think that's something that um I don't know how much people pay attention to that sort of thing, but look at the conversations being had in the groups and stuff like that, and it's you can see who it's happening to pretty plainly.
It's just so weird that this tiny little thing that shouldn't matter as much as music to people, right?
No,
It matters.
I don't.
I
You know what though? I think though, if I might pose this an opinion, I don't think that on the grandest scale, it's the thing that matters the most to people, right? It's people are by nature very communal, right? Like we need groups of people to interact with, and even more than that, we need groups of people to interact with on a common ground, right? And I think and I mean, like the puzzle is just really, really cool. It's something that's just super cool. It's very, it's kind of rare, right? Like the words armchair treasure hunt very rarely go along in most people's lexicon these days. You know what I mean? Like anytime I tell people that I'm, as a hobby, I do armchair treasure hunting, they think I'm looking for chairs, right? Or something like that. You know what I mean? And so it's a unique corner of the world to be accepted into. And I think that that acceptance is more so what people like. The secret could be anything as long as it had this communal effect in the sense that it does. We strive for that. It's, the world's become quite lonely and enclosed and, you know, connected but in a really distant way. And so when we find places like the secret community or any of the going back to music, any of the rock and roll communities online, or there's a hockey group that I'm part of that's gotten really big, that's super fun to be a part of, and things like that. Like anytime we find something like that, we want to cling to it really hard. And then if something comes along that tries to remove our cling, you know that affects us really heavily, no matter who you are, I think.
I don't know. I think those sort of communities exist in a lot of places, but for some reason this one's different. Like I know you've lost friends just because of the secret. Like so have I. You ever lost a friend because you like Limp Bizkit? For comparison, I
Yeah.
like I like metal music. I like really really hard metal music. Most people don't like metal music. Most people don't like the kind of stuff that I listen to. But I've never had someone like go through my town talking shit to people that I have to deal with about me just because I like metal music, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like when I set up that gallery showing in St. Augustine, I was talking to the people at the historical society, and they mentioned a very specific person who's local to St. Augustine who's like, dude, this guy talks so much shit about you, like constantly.
Yeah.
And we were fucking joking about it because they were like, how fucking absurd is it for some old man to go around talking shit about people over a fucking children's book? Like
Yeah.
it was just the most absurd thing they'd ever heard. And I don't see I still I don't see what causes that in people. Like, what? You're not gonna go around and be like, George likes death metal music and he probably worships Satan or whatever. But you're gonna be like, he thinks it's buried over here, and that makes him a fuckhead. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
See, it's interesting because you and I come from very basically the opposite ends of the populist spectrum in places we live, right? Like I grew up in a town of 1,200 people. For comparison's sake, the city I live in now, it just broke 100,000 people a few years ago, and my best friend here, his graduation class, like his grad class, what had the same amount of people in it as my entire high school. Okay, so like and when I was growing up, like, I was the only one really wearing Marilyn Manson shirts and, painting my nails and stuff like that and doing that whole thing. And, like I was kicked out of class a couple of times for just for the shirts I wore, things like that. And so it's different, like, yes, but it always boils down to the same ingredient. And I think generally that is fear, right? Like people are scared of what they don't understand, and it's a different kind of scared most of the time, but we don't like those things. And so because that guy is afraid that you're right, he's going to go around and talk a bunch of shit and try and discredit you, right? Because the people in my hometown didn't understand the things that I was getting into. They would push me, segregate me to the office, or kick me out of class, or send me home with my dad or whatever, right? And
I don't think it's that though. I think what it is because I'm not right, right? Like I've dug holes and I haven't pulled anything out of the ground. But so has he, right?
Mhm.
He is also not right. He's dug a shitload of holes and he's gone through making all of these huge fucking connections and trying to convince them that he's right so that he can dig these holes. So we are both equal, right? We are both wrong.
Mhm.
How does he make himself better? The only way he can do that is by being like, this dude's he's an asshole. I'm
Yeah,
not an asshole. He's an asshole. And that's the only, when you're both wrong, you can't, like, the only way to make yourself better is to make the other person look worse.
yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's sort of like a almost like a pseudo Machiavellian kind of you know mentality.
Like burn it all down kind of thing. If
Yeah,
I
it's
can
like
have the kingdom, I'm going to destroy it.
that's right. Like the scary boyfriend. If I can't have you, no one will.
Yeah. Crazy, dude. I don't see how, like, it's just nuts to me that old retired people like base their life around this and go around talking shit about other, like, get on with, find some joy, dude.
Yeah, yeah. Because you ain't gonna find it here, obviously. But it's
No,
also you got to remember, like some people only find joy in misery, right?
that's true, I guess.
And I suppose probably a good cross section of our population could be like that, right?
I feel like for mental health awareness month, it's just a bunch of episodes of us bitching.
Sometimes it's catharsis, right? It's you
Yeah,
need that.
yeah,
And I mean, like
yeah.
the first episode with the good doctor was good because they offered sort of a professional perspective on the whole deal, right? And a more professional, experiential sort of thing. Whereas this has been, just two dudes talking about mental health and things like
Yeah.
that, right?
I think that was weird for her, for the doctor, because she was like, "I never experienced anything like this. This is freaky."
Yeah, it's a different kind of
It's such a unique situation. I don't understand why we all can't say collectively that out of the, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 fans of The Secret that are out there in the world, fucking three people have found a cast. Three sets.
yeah,
They're up here, and the rest of us are on the same plane down here. They
yeah,
are right. We are wrong.
yeah,
We're no better, no worse than any other person. We are all wrong.
yeah.
I don't know.
I think too, like the isolation of the last few years and not being able to dig holes, like that forces us to speculate and live in that world of speculation. And so that's, I think a lot of that has to do with it. Like now that the world's sort of um opening up again or whatever, I fucking hate using that expression because it just makes the world sound like a convenience store, which I realize it is in a lot of
It
ways.
kind of
But
is, yeah.
I like to live in denial on that one. Um, but I think now that people can actually go out and prove themselves wrong, I'm loving what they're doing with the anniversary hunt site because somebody's actually started like documenting where holes are being dug, or where spots are being checked, right? Um,
Yeah, but
and
that's different because you can send me a thing and I'll be like, nope, keep trying. And that's a definitive, like you don't have to.
sure,
With the
but
secret, everybody wants to make those maps, but you can't trust people's holes. I feel like people make this their life, you know?
mhm,
And as much as I do with the secret, I don't make it my life. You
no.
shouldn't either.
No, like in a lot of ways, like my wife has next to no interest in this stuff at all, and in a way, I'm kind of glad for that. And
Could you imagine if she was into the secret? You guys both really like Milwaukee, but you disagreed on the verse. Could you imagine what
no,
your life would be like?
I don't know. It'd be interesting because like her and we don't fight. Like we have arguments and stuff like that, but you would never know that we've ever disagreed on something. But we always had this thing where if an argument or a conversation got to a really tense point, one of us would just crack a joke about it and make us both laugh, and now we're cooled out a bit or whatever, and we can get on with our day, sort of deal, right? And so if we were discussing that and let's say she was verse 8 and then I'm still verse 5, you know I don't know, the conversation would never get resolved, but at least it would never explode, right? Like it would never
Yeah.
go sour.
Yeah, I know. Rachel and I never really argue either, but really the only times we've ever had arguments was over this stuff. But it was mainly over stuff like money. Like I've
Mm,
got to spend money to do X or I've got to spend money to do Y. Rachel's very thrifty,
mm,
right? She does not like to spend money. She'll go 4 paychecks and never buy.
mhm.
She's that kind of person. She's like, I'm at home. I have all the things that I need. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Um, and she gets so pissed when it's like the other day when we were talking about this meetup in Boston, and I was like, I got to book a hotel room. I'm going to be there for 4 days. And she's like, how much is that going to cost? And I was like, $1,000. She's like, just for the hotel room? I was like, yeah. She's like, you can't find anything cheaper. I was like, you can try.
Mm, mm,
And she couldn't find anything cheaper. And that's when we didn't have an argument about that, but that's like an example of when we would, I guess. But like it to me, I guess it's not so much about the secret as it is about money. And I've learned, you know, she's the main part of my life. I have to be conscious of,
mhm.
which I guess bleeds over into the secret.
Yeah. And I think too, like for me personally, the accessibility thing is kind of what gets me down a lot. Like, you know, uh, and the only thing stopping me from attending every single meetup we have is money. And, like it's, it, I don't know, I guess that's kind of a soft topic, but it's just like, it irritates me in a lot of ways, right? That, you know, I'm this old and I can't afford to fly to Boston, but I just, um,
Well, dude, I mean, it's a
it's the
rare.
accessibility thing, like
It,
I don't know.
don't feel bad because it's rare that people fuck my age can
Yeah.
just drop everything that they're doing and fly to Boston. And with me, like I really can't afford it.
Yeah.
Like I live on credit cards and then pay them off over the year or
Mm,
pay them off with tax returns. Like it's rare. So I just somebody who is much smarter than me once said, like, show me your bank accounts and I'll show you what you're passionate about.
yeah.
And that's kind of me. Like I work, I make my money, and I have the exact opposite um, philosophy to money as Rachel does, where Rachel's like, we make money, we save money. I'm like, I go to work every day so that I can enjoy the time that I'm not working. So what the fuck
Gemini.
ever.
Yeah.
If I have $1,500, I'm gonna fly to Milwaukee.
Yeah. Yeah, Kim and I are the same way. I kind of want to, like, I try to distance Kim from, like, remember that a few months ago, that guy asked me, he private messaged me out of nowhere that I think this was his name. And he asked me if my wife was Catholic. And like, my first response was, it depends where you're going with that one, dude. Like, I very intentionally distance her from the community, you know.
See, I would have been a smart ass. I would have been like, she looks cute in a skirt. I don't know. Uh, Jesus Christ. People are fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
Talking about your wife, messaging Destiny. Like, goddamn. Destiny got, yeah. Destiny got another. Destiny keeps getting, and I don't understand why. I guess because she's always doing shit with me. She keeps getting friend requests from people in the secret.
She probably shows up as like the people you may know or whatever.
Maybe. Because it's all people that I recognize.
She's shown up on mine a bunch of time as a person that I may know, and every time I just kind of ignore it. But yeah, fucking, I see her all the time on there.
Yeah.
And anybody that wants to get to you, it would stand to reason they're going to go through her. Like,
yeah. I think there's a lot of them coming from the anniversary hunt because I made the mistake of telling everybody that she was with me when I hid that thing. So I think people are like she doesn't ever post on Facebook, so it's not going to help you if you're her friend. She's
no,
young, and young people don't use Facebook. It's all old people.
yeah. If you see her at all, it's usually through your posts. Like,
yeah, she got other shit going on.
Yeah,
she's got like stalkers, whatever young girls have.
Yeah, I was just gonna say also, like, stay the fuck away from people's children. Like, you know, like, that would have been a good conversation piece. Is, you know, the whole bit with fucking and you know, those people send messaging your son and stuff like that. Like, what the fuck goes through people's heads to do something like where in the world does, like, can you imagine, like, let's not, this is a lesson in empathy. Can you imagine sitting at a computer desk one day, feeling whatever it is you're feeling, and honestly deciding that it's a rationally good idea to message a fucking, how old is Jason? Like 12?
13.
It's 13 now?
It's 13.
Right? Like, and you think, geez, it would be a fucking good idea if I message this kid and tell him these things about his dad. Like, that's a thing that went through somebody's head and then up their fingers and executed into the real world. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, I think you're trying to rationalize an irrational person, right? Like, these are the same kind of people who would bother.
You're right. Yeah.
The same kind of people who would bother Byron's kids. Right?
Yeah.
Like Byron's kids aren't, one of his kids is online because of her company, right? She's got to be. It's an online company. She's got to have an online presence. It's a minimal online presence for what she does. I would expect her to do a lot more, but she doesn't. The other one is completely absent from the internet. Like, these people still get bombarded with shit about this book that was published before they were even thought to be born.
Yeah.
Their dad had stopped thinking about when they were children, who died while they were children. Like, they still get messages about it from people. And like, it's absurd. It's irrational. And you can't rationalize irrationality. You just can't do it. Though you will never have a good reason for why people do something like that, because they don't operate on the same sort of moral wavelength that the rest of us do.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sucks that it sucks that at this age on the internet, where everything is reactionary, they get as much attention as they do because it's, you know, it's some bullshit that everybody can just react to. It's a fucking outrage, you know? Outrage culture. That's
it's the new hysteria. You know what I mean? Like, the satanic panic of the 80s or the witch hunt of the 1600s, you know, that same hysteria has always sort of been around. And, you know, it sucks. Like you say, it's wild. But again, you can't rationalize irrationality.
But I mean, like, it goes past the secret too. Like, people are just fucking crazy. Like the dude who broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and attacked his fucking her husband with a hammer. Like, that's her husband. He doesn't fucking do anything. You know,
No.
he just sits around. Why are you attacking your husband? People like senators who their kids get sent death threats. Like, it's their kids. What the fuck are they gonna do? You know,
Yeah.
it's irrational people doing irrational things because they are fucking mentally unstable.
But how do they do it? Like, that's the question, because they rationalized irrational actions by doing them, right? And they've concluded to themselves that this is a good idea and it makes sense. And it's like, how do you draw that conclusion? Like, so a little while ago, there, the provincial government, we have a guy named Tyler Shandro, and him and his family were at a like kind of an outside festival sort of thing, right? And he was walking with his wife and kids, and some people that would, like, there were some protesters of some kind there, and like, I don't fucking like this guy, and I definitely don't vote for his government, but he was walking with his wife and kids, and these people that were protesting came up and they started like shouting at his children their plight with him, essentially. And his kids aren't 10 years old, you know what I mean? Like, they're little kids. And these people walked up and started like screaming at them, right? And it's like, you know what? Like, I don't disagree with that guy one iota. I don't really respect him at all, but you do not fucking do things like that. You know what I mean? But somehow in their little brains, some people have thought, geez, this is a good idea, you know, and it is very reactionary. And that's, you know, that's one of the problems with the internet, is it gives people such a chance to be reactionary, right? But some reactions just simply don't need to be paid attention to. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's, you know, it sucks, but it's just that it's such a desire to be right and to be heard and obeyed. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I don't know, it's a different world.
I think that outrage, like I said before, it's hard to rationalize irrational people, right? Because they operate on a different mental plane than normal people operate. But
Yeah.
I think that outrage gets so bad within them that they feel like they have to do something. And, you know, what the fuck can they do? You
Yeah.
know? They're not like, so that chick had a big fucking problem with me. Sunday Fundays are open to anybody. She could have sent a fucking message and been like, I want to come on Sunday Funday and talk about it. But she's too fucking scared to do that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no fucking, she's not going to put herself out there like that. What can she do? Oh, I can fucking insult a child because, you know, I've got that much balls.
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, that's what, man.
Or it was just like fucking the one dude. It was, by the way, just so you know, who on the exact same day messaged Destiny.
Right.
He's like, he's got no fucking balls to message me. He got no balls to say shit to my face. But he's like, I'll message the girl.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine Rachel's probably gotten a few messages.
Rachel doesn't fucking check.
She doesn't. Like, yeah.
No.
Probably a good idea.
She doesn't use Facebook. She's never online.
No.
So yeah, I imagine it's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Everybody that has a problem with anyone who is a leader, so to speak, in the community, it's not that they're pissed off that there are leaders. It's they're pissed off that those leaders aren't them.
Yeah.
You know, right? They're not pissed off that people are working a puzzle a specific way. They're pissed off because they're not working it their way.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it's so fucking hypocritical.
So many people out there are like, you know, let everyone have an opinion, but make sure it's this. You know what I mean? Everyone's right because everyone's wrong.
Yeah, like the fucking alternate city people. They're like, everybody should be able to have an opinion. Newsflash, everybody does, just most people don't agree with you.
That's right. It's just not yours.
Yeah.